If a man dedicates his life to good deeds and the welfare of others, he will die unthanked and unremembered. If he exercises his genius, bringing misery and death to billions, his name will echo down through the millennia for hundreds of lifetimes. Infamy is always more preferable to ignominy. Welcome to 52 Miniatures. This video is about Fabius Bile. A nasty piece of work, but it's Warhammer 40k, so they all are. I'm going to paint Fabius inspired by the stories from the Warhammer 40k universe, also maybe alter the mini little, my own interpretation. As a short introduction, Fabius is a space marine, a lord of chaos, probably one of the baddest souls in the galaxy. His stage name is the Clonelord, and he wears a human flesh suit draped across his shoulders. Says a lot about a person, that. I'm a noob at most things from Games Workshop. I've never been interested much in the lore of any game. I like the miniatures, but it appears to be time to learn a little more. So I've started a collaboration with my local friendly game store, Alphaspel, or more to the point, with the good people working there. Staff from Alphaspel get to pick favorites or just interesting pieces from the Games Workshop universe. I'll paint my interpretation, learn a few stories, and then display the miniature in a cabinet at the store. I remember as a kid looking at all the cool painted minis in the game stores or scale model stores, and anything I can do to contribute to keep that kind of ritual happening is great. This time around, Arvid from Alphaspel picked Fabius Bile. In the box, Bile comes with another figure, a little minion extracting juicy glands out of a fallen marine. Says a lot about the person, that. Now, at first I decided to put the little minion on the same base as Fabius, but I realized it would be tricky to get good symmetry going. While pondering, I started to assemble the main character and then realized I did not appreciate the big dissecting tool apparatus attached to his backpack. Think if Tim Burton had a favorite dentist look. I think the silhouette without the backpack is far more striking. But he needs the backpack, apparently. I'll be honest and say I thought they were just, where you keep your tea and biscuits and that. But they are power supplies for the whole suit. Little atomic devices, Asimov-worthy, so it kind of needs to stay, but I can make it smaller. Then one thing led to another. I was altering the backpack, not like he didn't have it coming. Maybe he tripped over his own bone saw. But it left me with leftover backpack bits. I could use them. So I created a scene that tells a similar story as the accompanying minion would have. Bile fashionably walking over fallen space marines like it's Galaxy Space Week, and human skin is the new black, all whilst small harvest servitors surround him, sucking up the good space marine juice. So Bile is a space marine. It was an apothecary. Simply put, a medic. Now convinced anti-medic. Now, I don't really know what level to serve the rather intricate Space Marine facts. I mean, my knowledge is basic, but maybe so is yours. So let's go for basic. The apothecary does not only take care of the well-being of the Marines, it also supervises the implant thing. All Marines are physically and genetically altered. They have 19 implants that transform them into sort of superhumans. The apothecary deals with the workings of these implants, like when making new Marines, as well as retrieving them from dead ones, to again make new ones. The implant-based circle of life. Bile, convinced he could develop the perfect human form, experimented exceedingly with merciless genetic engineering, the Space Marine gene pool, studying their implants as well as cloning and mutations, while at the same time converted and became a follower of chaos. Says a lot about a person, that. Now, I haven't painted anything in what I'd like to say is my way for a while. I've tried to paint a lot of minis fast, or tried new techniques, but it's been forever since I just painted what I feel like in the moment without any other intent than the fun of painting. And as it turns out, painting as fun is important. I started with a Zenithal Prime, a black primer covering the model, followed by a dusting with my airbrush from above with white paint. This can be done with a rattle can, or some even do it with a dry brush. I like it because it gives me a map of what parts should be painted brighter darker, and in between, as the result is like a black and white photograph of the miniature lit by a cloudy sky, a map of light that I follow throughout the paint job. Now, I just received some P3 paint. A disclaimer, these tubs are from the Kickstarter edition, whereas when these will be sold in stores, they will come in dropper bottles. Before these, I got my hands on some testers, and initially I really liked the paint. That's the ones with the really funny labels. Now I have all these others to test out, and I thought this is a good time to do it. I know I need a purple for the armor. Bile is of the Emperor's Children Legion. They like purple armor. Then there's the flesh suit. The official paint job is kind of leathery. I'd like mine to be a bit more fresh and non-tanned. Pinkish. To balance these, I'd like something green, but with a vibe of Cold War military apparatus. The harvested marines on the ground have to be blue ultramarines, of course. Maybe orange then, to make the marine juice collector fluid containers stand out? Color schemes are a balance. Some colors complement each other, they make each other look good. Some colors have meaning and tell stories. I like using a lot of nuances, but at the same time keep the major parts simple. Not too many different colors. A little difficult to explain perhaps, but I hope you'll see it in the end. And my painting this time is many layered. Shrek's ogre onions have nothing on me. I am, of course, after certain effects or looks, but also I just like doing a lot of these things. Like, painting does not always have to be a trick or just do this or follow this in this very specific order. Painting can also be something you just do because you like it. Buck ends there. I start with a wet blend, mixing paint, a dark and bright version of the color I'm after, on the miniature while the paint is wet. Trying to get darker paint in the darker bits of the Zenithal Prime and the opposite with the bright paints, smudging the paint into a gradient in between. I follow this up with stamping on some textures with a small piece of sponge. I like this for areas that I want to give a bit of an extra worn look, like the armor for example. I've got my little piece of sponge. This is from packaging, but it could be a kitchen sponge, for example. I dip it in rather diluted paint, get rid of the worst excess, then stamp the sponge on the miniature repeatedly, giving me a speckled sort of worn look. The same workflow goes into the flesh cloak. Now the thing with the cloak is essentially a stitched cloak made of the skin of those who oppose him, earning Bile the nickname Man-Flayer. Apparently also forcing the skinless survivors to carry the garment behind him like a bridal train. Says something about a person, that. It seems Fabius is a character that has been in the Warhammer stories for a long time. There's pages after pages of horrible things to read. I can't summarize it all, so I'll go for some of the highlights. The Space Marines, super soldiers of the Emperor, fought among themselves during the Horus Heresy. Some stayed loyal to the Emperor, others converted to Chaos. Bile turned to Chaos and not only helped enhance the heretic Emperor's children genetically, altering their brain chemistry to sharpen their senses, and connecting their pleasure centers more directly to their nervous system so that every stimulus, including killing other people, would bring them unholy joy. He also cloned Horus. The ultimate traitor and bad guy died. But Bile figured the world would be much more fun with a Horus in it. Bile would also really like to clone the Emperor, a pretty good idea if he could make it happen. The same kind of mind would think, I should clone Jesus and make him do things for me. Wine expenses would go down. Says a lot about a person, that. Chaos Space Marines need to harvest the gland thing from dying Marines to make more Marines. Bile is the expert here, and that makes him a very important person. Otherwise, Chaos would slowly but surely lose warriors. This importance Bile uses to scheme and plan weird clone, mutant, or genetic experimental plans in absurdum. Bile himself is affected by a virus called the Blight that slowly eats him from the insides, I guess. So to solve the problem, he clones himself when needed and moves his brain into the new him. Thus, he kind of lives on forever. Another hobby of his is studying the art of pain, aka torture. He also makes mutants, not always very successfully. Quite the horrible fellow. At least he has a cool looking stick. I believe it was given to him from a demon or something. Now, when I've sketched in the different colors, I like doing this, getting some paint on almost everything to get an overview if the scheme works, as well as it makes me feel like I'm getting somewhere. But then I add a little more shading. One way is black lining. I'm kind of sloppy at it, but it still works. Painting a thin line of thin black paint in relevant crevices and such. This adds depth and contrast that maybe is not excessively visible, but you can kind of feel it when you're done. I've also got a darker teal for the same purpose, but where I don't want that stark black. The dark teal I also used thinned down to a glaze and add where I want to enhance shading in sort of larger areas. This darkens things down, but also gives an overall coherency. If all parts on the model share a similar shadow color, I think it kind of adds a sense of space and place and environment. Now I've kind of reached the point here where everything has paint on and the mood is set. The rest is defining what we have by layers of thin paint, as well as sort of edge highlighting and stuff like that. The cloak again feels like it should be made special. I read somewhere that you can recognize pieces of people in it, sometimes even faces locked in agony. I thought again, like making it more fresh, as well as what comes after fresh, decomposed, would be cooler than the tanned version of the official paint job. My version would smell worse, I guess. I'd already added a bit of orange, making things feel a little yeasty, but now I thought paler scratches and, well, the feel of fat. Also blood veins. This is just one of those grim and dark things that is kind of difficult not to add. There's always blood. Rounding off with a bit of sort of warm orc green for that fermented touch. Really thin paint that I glaze on, altering the color underneath to a green without it becoming too overpowering. And this green I can also use as a shader, adding it in crevices that I just want a little bit darker. For the green on the armor and the servitors, I know it's a bit unconventional, but I kind of like the retro vibe. For me, representing the slightly more utilitarian grim dark future that I enjoy, rather than the golden blingy one. Also, it kind of looks like a vintage dentist apparatus color. Really kind of stoked how that all turned out, and I'll be remembering the recipe for future paint jobs. Same actually goes for the ultramarines. Oh, I haven't said much about the paints so far, but I like them. I sincerely like the colors. They suit a lot of what I usually go for, and the consistency also suits my paint style, I think. Some cover a bit more than others. All seem to have the same flow off the brush, and I'm definitely hanging on to these. Anyway, the blue Space Marines. The first thing I'd done in the previous step was to brush over the Zenithal Prime with the blue ink, and some sepia washes for the gold bits. Now, I layer on thin layers of blue, working brighter and brighter, still with a bit of an attitude that this is a base and not important characters. The final layer being sort of edge highlights and scratches and so on. In retrospect, I'm digging the look and kind of feel that I should be making a video on how to paint ultramarines, but something's telling me that's been done a few times in the past. The Space Marine juice containers are not colored orange because of any story context. This is all based on color scheme decisions. Bile's own syringe-like weapon is some kind of a mutation juice device. And well, honestly, I'm not sure what's going on here. Are these servitors harvesting something, or are they squirting in something to make the harvesting of organs easier, like a mosquito? I just wanted a scene that feels like this is happening right now and you can't stop it. There's so many layers of made-up facts at how all this supposedly works, the glands and that, and there will always be those that have read them all. So maybe if you're watching, you can let me know what I've built. All in all, orange looked best to me from a paint job perspective. Regarding Fabius's skin tone, I decided to make him dark-skinned. 2 reasons. 1, I feared a pale skin tone would get lost among the rather pale skin cloak. 2, personal opinion. We have this awful character created when maybe times were a little different, a time when there was apparently a need for Warhammer 40k's own Joseph Mengele. I feel that the sort of fascism vibe, the genocides, the worst of humanity that indeed is the focus of Warhammer 40k can get a bit too much for my taste. So if we're going to have someone like Bile, wanting to create the ultimate race, maybe in the image of himself, as this is often the case with people saying things like that, then I just can't make him white. Simple as that. It reminds me too much of past real horrors. Instead, I dig in, focus on the stories, and that I'm painting a little toy soldier for a game set in a dystopian future. Oh, and by the way, just to wiggle the dagger a little, I have read pages after pages after pages about this horrible man and have not stumbled upon one single woman featured in any way in any of the stories. No wonder they have to resort to cloning. Twist, turn, wiggle. I've really enjoyed painting Bile. What a great model, and it was just so much fun to just paint a model. And I have enjoyed learning a bit more about the Warhammer 40k universe. Can't wait to see what I get to paint and learn about next. If you're in Stockholm, you should be able to check out this miniature in real life at Alphaspel. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to support your favorite creator if you can. Doesn't have to be me. Many of us can only keep these videos coming because of the kind support of patrons, for example. It's what keeps us going. So check out some Patreons if you can. I hope to see you soon. Bye.